Sandra Smith, co-anchor of America Reports. We go on to wonderful Taylor Riggs, co-host of The Big Money Show, and the great John Carney, Breitbart News economics finance editor, co-author of Breitbart Business Digest. Sandra Smith, I begin with you.
I feel so inspired by that riff.
I mean, really.
Because the takeaway is less spending.
Yes.
And it's interesting, you know, I think there was this moment in this Sunday show, or there was an interview with J.D. Vance over the weekend that everybody said, gosh, you know, he did a fabulous job handling some questions that otherwise, I don't know that they were appropriately asked. We won't get into the details of that. But there was a question that he got about, well, what executive order did he sign day one to bring prices down? And he answered it fine. However, I think the answer is cutting spending.
That's right.
That's the bottom line. That is the biggest thing
he should have had my riff. He could have used my riff.
I mean, he did fine.
When did he do this?
But that's the answer.
When did he do this?
It was the Margaret Brennan interview.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
And that is the response. It's not going to be an EO. It's going to be cutting spending.
Right.
And that is what needs to happen to have these prices come down and to have inflation tame. Bottom line.
And Taylor, he's going to take down riffs, but not my kind of riff, a new riff. It's called reduction in force.
Ooh.
That's the governmental, bureaucratic name that I learned for all my years on the taxpayer dole in the White House. But really, this Wall Street Journal thing is very important. This Civil Service Reform Act.
Yeah.
Whatever level you are, you can be secretary, deputy, under, assistant. You can be middle level, but you can be reclassified as a policymaker. And if Mr. Trump doesn't like your policymakerness, he can fire you.
Well, and
that's big.
And it sounds like the OMB memo that you were talking about, right? Where basically what I like about this, everything is up for review. Everything is on the chopping block. It doesn't mean everything is permanent. It means we are pausing to evaluate our options. And then when we get to see what policies are being spent money on that we like and what policies have a ton of money that we're spending on that we don't like, then we get to review. But I like the pause because it stops the bleeding, allows us to reevaluate, and then we can figure out how to move forward. There was a funny headline, cities from New York to San Francisco are all up in arms because some of these states get 30% of their budget from Washington and they don't know what to do. It's not permanent. This is a pause to figure out the lay of the land, to fix the spending problem, and to get to the root problem.
And that is the root problem of the deficits.
Yeah.
Overspending is the root problem of the debt. I think the Americans know that. Politicians don't know it. Trump knows it. He is going after the swamp. You know, the swamp is this workforce thing. And he can reclassify them as, quote, Schedule Fs through the Civil Service Act, which was passed during the Carter years, believe it or not. But, I mean, over 50,000 federal jobs, John. And I want to add to that the impoundment issue. I know that official Washington swampland doesn't like impoundment. The fact is, American presidents had it for over 200 years until a far-left Congress took it away from Richard Nixon, you know, during his worst moments in 1974. But budget cutting, employment rifts, and impoundment. Now, that is going to be tough stuff.
It is a profoundly anti-inflationary, as you were saying.
100%.
There you go.
Because remember that federal workers, the swamp, do not add goods and services to the economy at all, but they consume goods and services. By forcing people out of the federal government into the productive private sector, we will add to the supply of goods and services in the country, and without adding to demand. These people will have to find productive jobs that will be good for us. Frankly, it will be good for them because they are sitting around in jobs they never go to, do no work, and do not add any productive services or goods to the economy. Take them out. Donald Trump should look at, I guarantee it's even greater than 50,000. The amount of DEI policymakers there are in the United States government right now is huge. You can classify all of them as policymakers. Donald Trump can get rid of every single one of them.
Well done.
I mean, I just want to get something in here because we had Caroline Leavitt's first.
I'm going to deep seek in a minute, but go ahead.
Press conference today, and she said if you're receiving individual assistance, you will continue to receive that.
Yes.
Important to get that in there.
That's true.
On the funding freeze, she
He's
said
not going after
but important to get
welfare
this out here.
He's not going after per se.
The pause
this
doesn't include food stamps, Social Security, Medicare, welfare.
But it may. They may
but it
have
could,
to look at that.
Yep,
right, because the Bidens put all this money out, and took away the work requirements, which were actually put in a very long time ago, I'm going to say 30 years or so, during the Clinton-Gingrich years, one of the greatest reforms for welfare. And what happened when people had to go back to work, if they were able-bodied, they had to go back to work. Millions of them did, and the economy soared.
Yeah. Run it like a business, right?
There you go. All right, Taylor. Just a moment. I don't want to obsess about this. Deep Seek. I'm doing it because it's on the front pages. Everybody's talking about it. And I happen to think people are overly obsessing about this. Moreover, I do not believe a thing the Chinese government says. But please, Taylor, I don't want to bias your response.
Well, Well, let's see if I can
no leading questions.
I have some mixed thoughts. I do understand that people say China uses way more chips than we were told. They stole the algorithm from OpenAI. They're using higher performance chips than they were told. That being said, I do like what the president said today, that all of this just puts us on notice. We are not guaranteed to be #1 in AI no matter what. We cannot rest on yesterday's laurels. We need to continue to innovate because China, even if you don't believe that DeepSeek is as good as it is, they're not that far behind. I remember OpenAI executives saying, we used to talk about how China was years behind. They might only be months behind. So I agree that maybe China hasn't come up with DeepSeek, which is this incredible revolutionary product that's a quarter of the cost, and everyone in the US has been overvalued and overspending. But I think it puts us on notice that we need to be very careful with AI. We need to innovate. We need a pro-business administration, and we need to support entrepreneurs to make sure that we don't fall behind to China.
Okay, I agree. It's a great riff you have. I agree. I don't know whether they spent $5 million or not. I think that could be a phony number. Okay, but let's put that aside.
Right.
Our big hitters, I mean, in the paper today, Microsoft, Meta, OpenAI, they're all prepared to spend a lot more money.
That's why you had the sell-off, right?
So today, the market came back. NVIDIA lost 17% yesterday. Last I heard, it was up 11% today. It's bouncing back. They do have the best advanced chips.
Yes.
I don't think there's any doubt in that. And sanctions will be applied. This is to family jewels and technology. I don't want to obsess about it on the show. You're here. I wanted you to talk about it.
Thank you.
Everybody's talking about it. Some of the doormen in my building are talking about it.
So and that's
I figured I'd have to cover it.
Everybody owns a little bit of NVIDIA. But, Larry, I will tell you one way this is going, is it is going to provide armament to critics of the Trump administration who do not like the energy consumption that building out AI is going to do. That is why the Chinese are pushing what they claim is a low-cost, low-energy AI, because they want to undermine support for building it here in the U.S. with high cost. So that's where they're going with this.
And we don't
that's why we need to be on guard.
We don't really know how good their chips are.
That's right.
We don't really know how good their system is.
This could be Theranos for
John,
AI.
All right, we're going to switch gears. You're on a roll right now. Stay that way. Donald Trump's tariff diplomacy with Colombia is apocryphal, I'm going to say. People who want to understand Trump's tariff views should watch carefully what he did to the president of Colombia. He basically told him to pound sand, and he said, you don't bring our deported criminals back to Colombia, 25% tariff tomorrow, 50% tariff the day after that, and we could go all the way to 100%. And what did the guy do? He folded. Now, John, what's the lesson we're learning from Trump v. Colombia?
What we're learning is that the thing we've been talking about for over a year, Larry, which is that Trump looks at tariffs as a way of negotiating the U.S.'s market power with the rest of the world. That when Trump says we're going to have a 25% tariff, the rest of the world wakes up and says, I don't want that. What do I have to do to get rid of it? It took just hours. That's what's going to happen all around the world. The rest of the world just saw that happen, and American businesses saw that happen. They're not going to run in fear when Trump says, I'm putting a tariff on a country. They're going to say, oh, good. That country is going to start to behave better, and that's what's going to happen.
Sandra Smith, you think the president of Mexico was watching the Columbia.
Yeah, you
business.
think? I think this goes back to your message of if it put them all on notice, right? This is an incredibly strong message and a successful one that he was able to operate in real time with transparency for the entire world to watch. I think that people saw what happened and they think if they're going to mess around, they're going to get messed around with. And I think it showed an effective negotiating strategy that this president has promised American voters. This is what they wanted. They wanted the chief negotiator in the White House.
It actually could be a lesson learned for Canada, but they don't have a government, they don't have a leader, so we'll have to wait on that. I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't know. We have pictures of this Google Maps today. Today. I love this story. The Gulf of America. By the way, Mount McKinley has been restored too.
Amazing.
Again, everyone loves McKinley.
I want to see it.
Do we have? We don't have pictures of the Gulf of America? I thought we did. They announced it this morning.
I don't know. The AP came out and said they're not changing.
The AP may not change.
The AP style guide still calls things by their names they gave up 30 years ago. They are not a guide to the current names of things. I will say this is important. The name Mexico did not come from the Aztecs. It's not some ancient native name.
Right.
It was named that by the Spaniards. The Gulf of Mexico was named that by the Spaniards. The Aztecs, the natives, did not have a name for the Gulf of Mexico. So if Trump is renaming it, he's not taking it away from some native population. He's actually saying, look, it's our Gulf. We should call it the Gulf of America.
We don't have it yet, but we will soon on Google Maps.
There it is.
Still Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
They're getting on it soon.
I heard
They
it this morning that Google had made this decision by a Google senior vice president at this thing I was.
I still call it the Triborough Bridge. Do you think I don't know.
The Gulf of Triborough?
the Triborough Bridge, the 59th Street Bridge, which I think is how
Sandra Smith, Scott Bessent was confirmed yesterday easily. What do you think about him as Treasury Secretary?
I think it's taking shape. I think that this is a good choice on the part of President Trump, and I think it all feeds into a grand master economic plan which the goal I think that we can all root on here in America is a business-friendly environment. I hope ultimately we see that. Cost-cutting, regulations rolling back. I think he's part of that entire equation, and I think there's prosperous times to potentially come.
I like that. Agree 100%. I've supported Scott the whole year. He's a very shrewd market guy at Treasury, which is kind of where you want.
Which is what we need after what we've talked about, what Janet Yellen has done by only funding short-term securities in order to win an election. Scott Bessent's smarter than that. He cut his chops in currencies. He knows this market. He knows how to calm it if things go haywire. He is the smartest person in the room.
I love that. He cut his chops on currency. That is fabulous, Taylor. Absolutely fabulous.
I do what I can.
God, what a crowd. John Carney, Taylor Riggs, and Sandra Smith. I'll tell you can catch Sandra along with her co-anchor John Roberts on America Reports. That's weekdays, 1 p.m. Eastern. And you can catch Taylor along with her co-hosts Brian Brenberg, Jackie DeAngelis, and Dagan McDowell on The Big Money Show from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern right here on Fabulous Fox